the twin moons hung over the alien village, casting silver light across the stone ground. Fires burned high in the great circle, and shadows of tall creatures moved back and forth. These aliens had long arms, sharp faces, and eyes that glowed faint yellow in the dark. Tonight, they gathered for a ritual older than memory. At the center of the circle stood a huge cage made of black metal. The cage rattled as something inside tried to move. It was not one of their own kind this time. It was a human child, small and fragile compared to the towering aliens. The boy's hair was dusty, and his clothes were torn, but his eyes were calm as he held the bars and looked out at the crowd. The aliens murmured with excitement. They had never offered a human before. For years they fed their great beast with wild animals or captured slaves, but the thought of a human stirred their hunger for spectacle. The leaders believed the beast would devour the child faster than anything else. It would please the beast, and the tribe would be safe for another season. Behind the cage, a great stone door slowly opened with a deep grinding sound. From the darkness within came a low growl, rolling like thunder. The air grew heavy as dust shook loose from the stone walls. Out of the black pit stepped the creature they worshipped and feared, the wolf beast. It was taller than 3 men, covered in thick dark fur that shimmered in the firelight. Its claws scraped the ground, leaving marks on the stone. Its eyes glowed blue, piercing through the night like twin stars. With each step, the earth seemed to tremble. The aliens bowed low, chanting in deep voices, calling on the beast to take the offering. The cage was pushed forward with long poles until it stood only a short distance from the beast. The boy was silent. He did not cry, and he did not beg. Instead, he held the bars and stared at the giant creature that now stood over him. The aliens expected the child to fall to the ground in fear, but instead, he stayed on his feet. His breathing was steady, his hands calm. The tribe whispered among themselves, confused by the courage of the small figure inside the cage. The wolf beast lowered its head, sniffing the air. Its breath came out in hot clouds of mist, rolling across the boy's face. The sound of its growl was deep and endless, like a storm. The cage rattled under the force of the creature's breath, yet the boy did not move away. One of the leaders, a tall alien with a staff carved from bone, raised his hand and shouted, "See the power of our beast. It will feast, and we will live." The crowd roared in agreement. They believed they were about to watch the end of the human child in a single snap of jaws. The beast's claws reached out, scraping the cage, bending the bars as if they were soft branches. Sparks flew as the metal gave way. The boy's eyes never left the beast's face. His lips moved, though no one in the crowd could hear what he said. It was not a cry for help. It was a whisper, soft and steady. The sound reached the beast's ears, and for a moment, its growl changed to a slow rumble, less of rage and more of thought. The cage door snapped open, and the boy was free. Gasps filled the night air. The aliens leaned forward, waiting for the beast to strike. Their chants grew louder, urging it on. Yet something strange was happening. The beast did not leap. It did not crush. It took one slow step closer. The boy stood still, his hands at his sides, his face lifted toward the glowing eyes. The beast lowered its massive head until its nose nearly touched the boy. The boy raised one hand and gently placed it against the creature's muzzle. The crowd fell silent. The fires crackled, and the night wind shifted, carrying the scent of ash. The boy's small hand rested on the fur, and the beast did not bite. Its eyes closed halfway, and it released a sound that was not a growl but a deep sigh. For the first time in countless seasons, the ritual did not end in blood. The wolf beast, feared by all, had not devoured the offering. Instead, it stood still, as if guarding the child. The aliens stared in disbelief. Some whispered that the child had cursed the beast. Others said he carried hidden power. The leaders frowned, gripping their staffs tightly, uncertain of what they were witnessing. The boy looked up at the beast, his hand still resting on its fur. His voice was quiet, but steady, carrying more strength than anyone expected from someone so small. "You do not need to hurt me," he said softly. Though the words were not understood by the aliens, the beast seemed to know their meaning. It raised its head, let out a long echoing call, and then stood at the boy's side as if he were its equal. The ritual had changed. The offering had not been consumed. The beast had chosen, and nothing in the tribe's history prepared them for what they now saw with their own eyes. The night ended not with victory chants, but with silence filled with fear and wonder. The night air was heavy with silence after the beast refused to harm the child. The fire still burned, sending sparks into the sky, but the chants of the tribe had faded into whispers of fear. No one knew what to say. The great wolf beast, once feared by every living soul in the valley, now stood calmly beside the human child as though they had always been companions. The leader with the bone staff took a step forward. His tall frame shook, though he tried to hide it. "The beast must be tested again," he called out. His voice was strong, but his eyes betrayed his unease. "Perhaps it is waiting. Perhaps it is only playing with the human before the end comes." The crowd murmured in agreement, though none dared step closer. They had seen the beast tear apart warriors in moments. If it now chose to protect the child, none wished to be the first to test its loyalty. The boy, still standing within reach of the beast, placed his hand gently on the thick fur of its leg. His small fingers pressed against the warm coat, and the beast rumbled deep in its chest, but it was not a sound of anger. It was closer to a purr, low and steady. The boy looked up at the glowing blue eyes and spoke in his soft voice. "You are not my enemy," he whispered. The words were in human tongue, unknown to the aliens, but something in his tone carried meaning beyond language. The beast's ears flicked, and it lowered its massive head, sniffing at the boy's hair as though he were part of its pack. One alien in the crowd could not contain his anger. He lifted a sharp spear and hurled it toward the boy, hoping to prove that the child was nothing more than fragile prey. The weapon cut through the air with a sharp whistle. In the same instant, the beast moved. Its paw struck the ground with a thunderous crack, and its body shielded the boy. The spear shattered against the beast's thick hide, falling uselessly to the stone floor. The crowd gasped, some falling to their knees. The boy did not flinch. He reached for the beast's muzzle again, speaking softly, his calmness like a shield of its own. The beast's glowing eyes narrowed, and it let out a warning growl, not at the boy but at the crowd. The sound rolled across the circle like thunder, shaking every heart that heard it. The leader shouted, "Control it! Chain it again!" His words held less power now, for even he could see the truth. The beast no longer answered their commands. A group of warriors stepped forward, holding long chains of iron. They circled, trying to close the distance, but the beast raised its head high and bared its teeth. Its roar cracked through the night like a storm. The warriors froze, their chains rattling in their hands. None dared move closer. The boy looked from the beast to the warriors. He could see their fear. Slowly, he shook his head. "It does not want to hurt anyone," he said, though his words were meant for the beast more than for the tribe. To the shock of all, the beast lowered its head and sat on the stone ground, towering still but calm, its breath coming in steady waves. The child stepped forward, leaving the broken cage behind. Each step was small, but steady, and the beast followed, its massive paws landing with careful grace. The aliens could not believe their eyes. The human child, no taller than their youngest, was leading the most feared creature in their history with nothing but a gentle hand and quiet words. Some of the tribe whispered in awe. Perhaps the beast has chosen a new master. Others shook their heads in anger, unwilling to accept that a human could hold such power. The leader gripped his staff so tightly that his knuckles turned pale. "Do not be fooled," he warned. "The beast is wild. It cannot be tamed. The child is only a moment of delay before its hunger returns." Yet even as he spoke, the beast lowered itself further, lying beside the boy with its massive head resting near his feet. Its eyes closed halfway, as though it had found peace for the first time in its life. The crowd fell silent again. The fires burned lower, the crackle of wood the only sound besides the steady breathing of the beast. The boy sat down too, resting his small frame against the warm fur of the great creature. His eyelids grew heavy, and before long, he drifted into sleep. The beast stayed awake, its glowing eyes watching the tribe. It did not move, but its presence alone kept them frozen in place. None dared challenge it again. As the night stretched on, whispers passed through the crowd. Some spoke of prophecy, others of curses, but all knew one thing: the world they lived in had changed. A child, weak in body but strong in spirit, had stood before the great wolf beast and survived. More than survived, he had been accepted. When the dawn began to rise, the first rays of sunlight touched the valley. The beast lifted its head and released a long call into the morning sky, a sound that echoed across mountains and rivers. Birds scattered, and even distant creatures answered the cry. It was not a roar of rage. It was a call of belonging, as if it was telling the world that it had found something worth protecting. The aliens who watched could not look away. The boy stirred from sleep, rubbing his eyes, and smiled when he saw the beast beside him. He stood, placed a hand on the beast's muzzle, and looked at the tribe with quiet strength. None dared step forward. None dared speak. The child and the beast stood together, and the tribe knew this was only the beginning of something greater than they could understand. The rising sun painted the sky with orange and gold, but the tribe's circle remained heavy with unease. The fire from the night before had burned down to ash, yet no one dared to move from their places. They watched the child and the great beast sitting together as if bound by an invisible thread. The boy stood quietly, his hand resting on the thick fur of the wolf beast. His calm eyes looked across the crowd, but he said nothing. He did not need to speak, for the sight alone carried a message that unsettled every alien heart. The leader with the bone staff broke the silence at last. His voice was sharp, though fear clung to the edges. "This cannot be. The beast has always obeyed hunger. It cannot refuse the offering. Something unnatural has happened." Murmurs rose among the aliens. Some nodded, agreeing with their leader, but others shook their heads in disbelief. They had seen the spear shatter against the beast's hide. They had seen the child stroke the creature's muzzle without harm. They had seen the beast lie down like a guardian at the boy's side. A tall female alien stepped forward, her long fingers clutching a stone pendant around her neck. She spoke with trembling words. "Perhaps the child has some hidden gift. Perhaps he carries a power we do not understand." Her words spread quickly through the crowd. More whispers rose, carrying fear and wonder alike. Another warrior snarled in anger. His sharp teeth flashed as he spoke. "No child can command the beast. This is trickery. The beast has gone weak. We should destroy both before they bring danger to us all. He lifted his spear as if to act, but the beast raised its head, eyes glowing blue once more. The growl that came from its throat was enough to stop him in his tracks. His hands shook, and the spear slipped from his fingers, clattering to the stone ground. The crowd gasped. Even the strongest warriors were powerless before the creature's loyalty. The boy turned and looked at the beast with a soft expression, as though reminding it to stay calm. His hand moved gently along the thick fur, and the beast lowered its head again. The act was so simple, yet it carried more authority than the commands of the tribe's leaders. The leader struck the ground with his bone staff, demanding order. "Do not be blinded by fear," he shouted. "The beast is ours. For generations it has served us through fear and hunger. It must not belong to the human. We will take it back." But even as he spoke, doubt clouded his words. The tribe had relied on chains, pain, and sacrifice to control the beast. Yet here was a child who had used no chains, no weapons, no commands, only quiet presence and trust. The aliens began to argue among themselves. Some called the boy a danger, a curse sent to break their traditions. Others whispered that he might be a sign of change, a messenger from beyond the stars. The tribe had never been so divided. In the middle of their quarrel, the boy knelt down and picked up a broken piece of the cage. He turned it in his small hands and then set it gently on the ground. It was as though he was showing that the prison was no longer needed. The beast would not return to chains. This simple act deepened the confusion. Some aliens felt their chests tighten with anger at the loss of control. Others felt their hearts open with awe at the bond they could not explain. One elder, her back bent with age, raised her thin voice. "Perhaps it is not the beast that has changed. Perhaps it is us who must change. The child has shown what we refuse to see. The beast does not answer to fear. It answers to kindness." Her words fell like stones in water, rippling across the crowd. Many turned to look at her in shock, but some lowered their heads in thought. The leader's face hardened. "Enough," he said. "We are rulers here, not humans. We will not bow to a child." His voice carried authority, yet the trembling of his hand on the staff betrayed his worry. The boy, unaware of the quarrels in their tongue, continued to sit beside the beast. He leaned his head against its warm fur, closing his eyes for a moment of rest. The image of peace clashed sharply with the anger and fear around them. The tribe's warriors stepped back, uncertain. The elders whispered to one another, divided in belief. The young ones stared wide-eyed at the child, as if watching a tale that would be remembered for ages. The confusion spread beyond the circle. Word of the event carried through the valley to other tribes. Stories grew with each telling, a human child who tamed the untamable, a beast that chose trust over hunger, a ritual broken by a simple hand. By midday, when the sun shone high, the leader could no longer hold the tribe together. He ordered everyone back to their homes, though their eyes kept returning to the boy and the beast. None dared to challenge them directly. The child and the beast remained in the circle, untouched, like guardians of a new truth. The tribe scattered in confusion, their chants silenced, their power shaken. For the first time in many generations, the old ways no longer seemed certain. The beast had made its choice, and the tribe did not know what that meant for their future. The day passed slowly in the alien valley. The tribe had returned to their stone homes, but peace did not return with them. Whispers filled the narrow paths, and arguments echoed inside the walls. Everyone spoke of the human child and the beast. Some feared a curse. Some hoped for change. None could ignore what they had seen. In the center circle, the boy remained with the wolf beast. The fires had burned out, leaving only cold ashes, but the boy did not seem afraid. He sat against the creature's warm side, resting when he grew tired and walking when he grew restless. The beast followed him step by step, its glowing eyes watchful, its ears alert to every sound. The leader of the tribe could not accept this new order. He gathered his closest advisors in the council cave, where the walls were carved with symbols of old hunts and victories. He struck his bone staff against the ground, the sound sharp and angry. "This child cannot be allowed to live among us," he declared. "The beast must obey us, not a human. If the child stays, our power will be broken." One advisor spoke with caution. "But you saw it with your own eyes. The beast chose the child. If we strike, the beast will strike us in return." Another added, "Perhaps the child has something we never understood. Perhaps we should learn what it is." The leader's face darkened, but he said nothing more. He feared the truth of those words. Meanwhile, outside the cave, a group of young aliens gathered near the circle, watching from a distance. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. They had never seen anyone touch the beast without fear. They whispered among themselves, wondering how such a small human could do what their strongest warriors could not. One of the braver youths stepped closer, calling out in the alien tongue, "Human, how do you command the beast?" The boy turned his head. He did not understand their words, but he saw the questioning look in their glowing eyes. He pressed his hand against the beast's muzzle and smiled softly. His voice was calm when he spoke, though it was in human tongue. "I do not command. I only listen." The aliens tilted their heads, not knowing the meaning, but the tone carried peace. The beast rumbled softly, like thunder far away, and lowered its head as if agreeing. What the aliens did not know was the child's past. He had not grown in safety like many human children. His family lived near forests filled with wild creatures back on the distant human colony. From an early age, he had learned how to survive among them. When other children played with toys, he watched birds build nests and listened to the growl of night animals. When others ran from danger, he stood still and waited, learning the language of movement and sound. His father had taught him that animals did not follow fear. They followed trust. His mother had shown him how to calm even frightened beasts with steady hands and gentle voice. Though young, the boy carried those lessons deep in his heart. He did not see the wolf beast as a monster. He saw it as a living creature, fierce but not mindless. Where the aliens saw rage, he saw loneliness. Where they saw hunger, he saw the need for respect. This was his secret. Not power, not magic, but understanding. As the evening came, the tribe gathered again in the circle, pulled by both fear and curiosity. The leader stood at the front, his staff shining with carvings of the past. He raised his voice so all could hear. "The beast belongs to us. It has kept us safe for generations. This human is a threat to our ways. We must take back what is ours." The crowd stirred uneasily, but before they could answer, the boy stepped forward. The beast followed close behind, its massive form casting long shadows in the firelight. The boy lifted his small hands and spoke in his soft voice. "You do not need to fear," he said. His words were not understood, yet his calm tone carried weight. He walked slowly to the center of the circle, placed his hand on the beast's muzzle, and then turned to face the tribe. The beast lowered its head and lay down at the boy's side. The sight shook the aliens deeply. Never had the beast shown such peace in the circle of sacrifice. The elder who had spoken before raised her voice again. Do you not see? The human has shown us another way. We ruled the beast with fear. The child rules with kindness. Which is stronger? The tribe murmured, torn between the leader's authority and the truth of the elder's words. The leader struck the ground with his staff, desperate to hold power. It is weakness, he shouted. The child will bring ruin. The beast will betray him soon enough. Yet even as he spoke, the boy leaned against the beast's side, resting without fear. The beast lifted its head, watching the leader with glowing blue eyes, and let out a low growl that silenced the circle. The tribe froze. The beast had chosen its side, and all could see it. The leader's face turned pale, but he forced a cold smile. Then let the child prove himself, he said. If he is not weak, let him face what lies beyond the valley. Only then will we know the truth. His challenge spread like fire through the crowd. Some cheered, hoping the child would fail. Others watched with quiet hope that he might succeed. The boy did not understand the leader's words, but he felt the shift in the air. The beast pressed close to him, as though ready for what was coming. The secret of the child was no longer hidden. His bond with the beast had shaken the old ways. The test ahead would decide if kindness could truly stand against fear. The night was quiet after the leader's challenge, but the tribe could not sleep. Fires burned in every corner of the valley as voices argued in the shadows. Some believed the child was blessed. Others believed he was dangerous. The wolf beast's presence had divided the people more than any war. At the center circle, the boy rested against the beast's warm fur. He did not know the words of the challenge, but he felt the tension in the air. The alien's eyes no longer looked at him with simple fear. Now they carried anger, doubt, and wonder all at once. The leader sat in the council cave, speaking with his warriors. His voice was low but filled with pride. At dawn, we will take the beast from the boy. We will starve it until its hunger returns. Then it will remember its place. The warriors nodded, though their eyes shifted nervously. None wanted to face the beast directly, but they feared the leader's anger more than they feared the truth. When the first light touched the mountains, the plan was set in motion. Dozens of warriors marched to the circle with long chains of black iron. Their footsteps echoed across the valley floor. The tribe gathered behind them, eager to see the outcome. The boy stood as the warriors approached. He placed a hand on the beast's neck, and the creature rose to its full height. Its blue eyes glowed brighter in the morning light, and its growl rolled across the stones like thunder. The leader lifted his bone staff. Chain it. Now. The warriors spread out, circling the beast. Their chains clinked against the ground, heavy and sharp. The beast bared its teeth, its fur bristling, but the boy whispered softly, calming it for a moment. One warrior stepped forward, raising his chain high. The beast's eyes locked on him, and the air grew tense. Before the chain could fall, the beast swiped its massive paw. The warrior flew backward, the chain snapping in two like a twig. The crowd gasped, stumbling away in fear. The boy quickly stepped in front of the beast, holding up his small hands. His calm voice filled the silence. Stay with me, he said gently. The beast lowered its head, breathing hard, but it did not strike again. Instead, it moved to stand behind the boy, towering over him like a shield. The leader's face twisted with fury. Do you see? The child controls it against us. This is not our protector. This is our enemy. The crowd wavered. Some nodded, afraid of the beast's strength. Others shook their heads, remembering the spear that had shattered harmlessly against its hide. They knew the beast could have destroyed them all if it wished, yet it chose not to. The boy knelt, placing both hands on the beast's muzzle. His eyes were steady, his voice soft. "You are not a tool. You are free." The beast's growl changed into a deep rumble of trust. Slowly, it lowered its body until it lay flat on the ground. The boy leaned against its head, showing no fear. The crowd fell silent. They had lived their whole lives believing the beast only understood chains and hunger. Yet here it was, showing loyalty not through force but through choice. The elder who had spoken before raised her thin voice once more. "Do you not see? The beast has chosen. It has chosen the child, not us. Perhaps this is the way forward." The leader slammed his staff against the ground. "No. We rule here. Not a child. Not a beast." His voice cracked with rage, but the crowd no longer answered with the same strength as before. The beast rose again, stepping beside the boy. Its massive form blocked the leader from view. It released a roar that shook the valley, not a roar of rage, but one of decision. The chains dropped from the warrior's hands. The message was clear. The beast would no longer obey the tribe's fear. The boy placed a hand on its side, guiding it toward the open fields beyond the circle. The beast followed willingly, each step heavy with purpose. The crowd parted in silence, watching as the human child and the wolf beast walked together. Some aliens bowed their heads, accepting what they saw. Others clenched their fists, refusing to believe their power had ended. But none could stop the pair. The leader stood frozen, his staff trembling in his hands. For the first time, his voice failed him. He could not command the beast. He could not control the child. His authority, built on generations of fear, had cracked. The boy looked back once, his calm eyes meeting the leader's glare. He said nothing, but his silence carried more weight than any words. Then he turned again and walked on, the beast at his side. The tribe knew they had witnessed something greater than themselves. The beast had made its choice. It was no longer a prisoner of chains or hunger. It had chosen trust, and in doing so, it had chosen the human child. The valley, once filled with chants of fear, was left in silence. A silence heavy with change. The valley felt different after the beast walked away from the circle with the human child. For many generations, the people had lived under the shadow of fear. Every season they offered lives to keep the beast calm. Every chant, every chain, every command was tied to the old belief that fear was stronger than trust. But that night, those beliefs cracked. The boy and the beast did not return to the cage. They walked freely along the wide paths of the valley. Wherever they passed, the aliens stepped back. None dared to lift a weapon, for the beast's glowing eyes watched every movement. The boy's calm voice and steady hands guided it like an unseen rope, keeping its rage quiet. Whispers traveled quickly. Other tribes beyond the mountains heard the story within days. Messengers carried the tale of a child who tamed the untamable, a beast that once tore apart armies but now obeyed a human's gentle touch. Some laughed, calling it a lie. Others trembled, afraid it was true. Among the humans living under alien rule, the story spread like fire. They had always been seen as weak, too small, too soft, too fragile to stand against alien strength. Yet here was proof that weakness was not the whole truth. A single child had changed what even the strongest warriors could not. In the alien council cave, the leader raged. His staff cracked against the stone floor as he shouted at his advisors. The tribes grow restless. Some doubt our power. They whisper that the beast belongs to the human. If this continues, we will lose control. One advisor spoke carefully. Perhaps it is already lost. The beast no longer answers to us. It has chosen. The leader's face hardened. He would not admit defeat, but the silence in the cave showed that even his closest followers feared the truth. While the council fought over words, the boy continued to walk with the beast. He slept against its side at night, and in the mornings, he led it to streams and forests. The creature, once feared as a destroyer, now moved with patience, protecting the child from danger. Smaller animals fled at its scent, but the boy remained safe in its shadow. Aliens who dared to watch from afar saw something they could not understand. The beast no longer looked hungry or restless. It looked calm, almost at peace, as if the boy had given it something chains never could. Soon, small groups of aliens began to gather at a distance. They wanted to see with their own eyes if the stories were true. They watched the boy pat the beast's muzzle, watched the beast lower its head to drink when the boy pointed, watched it sit calmly beside him without command. Some aliens began to whisper that perhaps humans carried a hidden strength no one had noticed before. For the humans, this was the beginning of change. Once kept low and silent, they now stood a little taller. They repeated the story to their children, how a child with no weapon and no armor stood before the great beast and lived. They began to see themselves not as weak, but as different, carrying gifts that others did not. The elder of the tribe who had defended the boy spoke again during a gathering. Her voice was thin but steady. We believed strength was only chains and fear. But look at what has happened. The human child has shown that strength can also be trust. Perhaps it is time we learn, not only rule. Many nodded quietly, though the leader still scowled. His power was slipping like sand through his fingers. He knew if more humans discovered this hidden strength, they would no longer bow so easily. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between the child and the beast grew. The boy learned the beast's movements, its moods, its silent language of growls and ears and tail. The beast, in return, seemed to understand the boy's gentle voice and steady hands. It guarded him like a treasure, never straying far. Other humans began to approach slowly, bringing food or water. At first they feared the beast's sharp teeth, but when they saw it remain calm under the child's touch, their courage grew. They offered the child their help, and in return, the beast allowed them near. It was the first time in memory that humans and the beast stood together without chains. The aliens watched this with unease. Some were angry, feeling their control was slipping away. Others were quietly impressed. They began to wonder if humans carried something their tribe had overlooked for too long. The rise of humanity did not come with battles or weapons. It came with the image of a small child and a great beast walking side by side. That image spread through valleys, across rivers, and over mountains. It was carried by voices, by whispers, by stories told at fires in the dark. And wherever the story spread, humans lifted their heads a little higher, and aliens lowered their voices in doubt. The leader of the tribe tried to command fear again, but the people's hearts were changing. Fear was no longer the only truth they knew. Now they had seen another way. The boy did not know he had become a symbol. He only walked with the beast, caring for it, listening to it, treating it as a friend instead of a monster. Yet in doing so, he had given his people something greater than fear. He had given them hope. The valley had changed. Once filled with fear and strict rules, it now carried whispers of wonder. The humans no longer hid in the shadows. The boy, small in body but strong in spirit, walked with the wolf beast at his side. Together, they had become a symbol of something the aliens could not ignore. The leader of the tribe watched from his council cave, anger and worry fighting inside him. His staff felt heavy in his hands, but no command could reach the beast anymore. Every time he raised his voice to order, the creature only lifted its head and let out a low, steady rumble. That rumble carried the message: it would not return to fear, and it would protect the human child. Other aliens began to question the ways they had always known. They saw that humans, once thought fragile, could form bonds stronger than fear. Some joined the child, bringing offerings of food or water, and quietly learning his ways. They wanted to understand, not dominate. Slowly, a new respect began to spread through the valley. The humans began to walk openly, no longer hidden from the aliens' eyes. They helped each other, shared knowledge, and learned from the child's example. For generations, they had been told they were weak. Now, they saw their own strength in patience, in understanding, and in trust. The boy spent every day teaching what he had learned in his early life. He showed that strength could be quiet, that courage could be calm, that respect could win loyalty where fear had failed. The wolf beast followed him everywhere, silent and watchful. Its glowing blue eyes were no longer threatening. They shone with a quiet intelligence, reflecting the child's calm heart. One day, a group of aliens from a distant tribe arrived. They had heard the stories and wanted to see the child and the beast for themselves. They expected fear, wildness, and perhaps violence. Instead, they saw the child walking beside the beast, the creature lowering its head in greeting as the boy spoke softly. The visiting aliens gasped. They had believed humans could never command respect. They had believed strength came from size and power. What they saw now shook their understanding. They began to question their own ways, wondering if fear had ruled them too long. Even the leader of the tribe began to change, though he would not admit it. He watched from a distance as humans and aliens, once divided by rules and chains, began to work together. They helped each other carry food, repair homes, and care for the animals of the valley. The old way of fear was fading. The child did not seek glory. He only continued to care for the wolf beast, guiding it, speaking to it, listening to it. Yet every action he took inspired others. Humans stood taller. Aliens paused before ordering with anger. The balance of the valley was shifting toward cooperation, understanding, and trust. The boy and the beast became inseparable. Wherever the child went, the beast followed. It guarded him with fierce loyalty, yet it was gentle with those who approached with respect. The aliens learned to see the creature not as a weapon or a threat, but as a companion. Slowly, old rivalries softened, and some tribes began to form bonds with humans they had never considered possible. Years passed. The boy grew taller, stronger in knowledge and wisdom. The wolf beast grew larger and wiser with him. Together, they taught others that the world did not have to be ruled by fear. Strength could come from patience. Power could come from understanding. Respect could create loyalty stronger than chains. The child's story spread across lands and tribes. Humans, once seen as weak, were now respected. Some aliens still resisted the change, clinging to old fears, but they were fewer each season. The boy and his companion had shown the valley that fear was not the only path to order. Trust and courage could lead to a future stronger than any sword or claw. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, the boy stood at the edge of a cliff. The wolf beast lay at his side, watching the valley below. Humans and aliens moved together in harmony, sharing work and life. The boy smiled quietly. He knew that the world had changed because he had chosen to show kindness and respect. The beast had chosen to trust, and that choice had inspired everyone around them. The leader, once proud and feared, walked through the valley in silence. He saw humans and aliens working together, helping each other, and even feeding the wolf beast. He understood that he could not force fear to rule anymore. Change had come, not with violence, but with courage, trust, and patience. The child looked down at the valley, the wolf beast resting its massive head against his legs. He did not boast of power, and he did not demand respect. Yet all who saw him understood the lesson he had given. Humans could be strong in ways the universe had never expected. The valley was no longer ruled by fear. It was ruled by trust. And it had all begun with a small human child who stood before a ravenous beast and chose not to fight, but to understand. The wolf beast rose and howled, a sound that carried across mountains and rivers. It was not a roar of rage. It was a song of loyalty, of unity, and of the new world the child had helped create. Humans and aliens alike listened, and in that sound, they understood that the future belonged to those who could see strength in the quiet, courage in calmness, and power in trust. The story of the child and the beast would be told for generations. It would remind everyone that even the smallest among them could inspire change. That fear could be replaced by understanding. That humanity, when true to itself, could rise stronger than any force in the galaxy. The boy and the wolf beast stood side by side, guardians of a valley forever changed.